From bad qualifying laps to deals falling through, in this second chapter, the conversation moves to what happens when things go wrong. Nico Hülkenberg and Gastón Taratuta share how they handle those moments with perspective, breaking them down, learning from them, and getting ready for the next opportunity. I think, F1 is an innovation business, isn't it? It has to embrace change constantly, and you can't have an attitude of saying, well, we do this thing this way because we've always done it that way. What do you think is the point where you sort of think, well, actually, this needs to change, we can do it better?
I think it's quite a natural process again. I think obviously we always have the stopwatch in racing, which doesn't lie, which tells the truth, and you have the results, and if you fall short, of your expectations, or you don't, finish in good positions, that tells you the answer basically, that you're not on the right track, that others are doing a better job, and you're kind of forced to review how you do things, and probably need to adjust or fine-tune things.
What do you think, Gastón, if you had to change and adapt over the years?
Bueno, digital marketing, if you think 20 years ago, I started 25 years ago, where you go to a meeting with a client, advertiser, and they say, no, if you want to talk about digital marketing, talk to this young person here. Right? Today, you look at the world in G20 markets, G7 markets, Germany, United States, is 60% of the budget of the total media. So right now, it's king. Digital marketing is king. It's changed a lot. If you are a marketeer 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it's different today. There are many different platforms. The consumer journey has changed, absolutely. And I think like the cars change. The rules have changed. I think they're going to be changing next year in the future races. So it's the same. Here it is. I was looking at Nico's race the last 3 minutes in Britain. The amount of data that the team gathers to pass on to him ideas, suggestions. But what he did is you need the skills on the team, the human skills, not only machinery. They said, I'm going to change tires. I think it was it was raining, sun.
Changeable conditions.
And I remember you suggested, he said, I'm going to change. And those movements, I look at in football, this movement of Messi against Croatia in the semifinal of the World Cup is changing everything. So, what's the definition of intelligence in the dictionary?
Being open to change, I think, is one of those. Yeah.
Capacity to adapt.
Yeah.
That's the definition. So I think in both sports and these businesses, adapting fast is very, very important.
Because you have to think on the fly sometimes, don't you? Because, of course, you're producing all that data. You've got the engineers looking at the squiggly lines, but you're the person who can kind of feel what's going on. And sometimes do you feel empowered by that feeling to sort of say, well, actually, this is a better way of doing things. I don't care what the data says. This is what to do.
Yeah, I think for us, we, like you said, we have both. There's obviously the two drivers who are in the car who feel what's going on, and sometimes also, obviously we feel the conditions better or differently than just from numbers and squibbly lines, like you say. So I think for us, it's a blend. The data also, we look at it and, it helps us a lot to understand certain things and shows us where we need to work on, where we need to improve. So I think we use both. We connect the two and put the best of both worlds together. That's how it's always been in motorsport, at least in kind of my generation and in my kind of career timeline.
Because the gap between competitors is very small, isn't it? And you have to find those tiny little bits of advantage, don't you, to make things work in sport and Absolutely. Business. Now, I was thinking, recent example in F1, Mexico, first qualifying, the last few minutes, the gap between the fastest and the slowest was like 0.8 of a second. there is only time to do one more run. So what goes through your mind when you're looking at that and you think, oh, I'm going to have to go out again and I really have to nail it?
It's a known situation for me because I have been in the business for quite some time. But F1 and like in business, it's highly competitive. Everyone wants to be there, and it's a very desirable position to be in. But like Mexico, your example, it was one of them. Peak pressure moments. I was actually up against it. I think I was P last because my second lap was not so clean, not so good.
Is that what they call it? P last rather than P20?
I think it depends. It's different everywhere. But I felt it in that moment, and I knew, okay, this is one of those moments and points where you have to deliver on the spot, be spotless, be super flawless and clean, and deliver the lap. I know I can do it, and it's interesting. It's challenging moments. I actually like it. When the odds are against you and the pressure builds, and you still have to come through it and make something positive out of it and surprise everyone. But these are, I think, some of the challenges, but gives me quite a lot of joy actually to battle through these kind of moments. Makes you feel good and alive.
Gastón, you have a lot of competition now. When you set out, it was a new business area. Mm-hmm. I think your success kind of lures other people to go, oh, he's doing well, we'll copy that and steal some of his business. How does competition work for you? What's the pressure like when you've got these people who want to nick a bit of your business?
I think like in F1, everyone is a winner already. I have that feeling, Nico, like just being there, you're a winner. I think the fans appreciate these 20 guys there, the best drivers in the world out of 8 billion people. Everybody drives. Now, in our situation, the truth is that you have 3-4 companies that take 90%, 80% of the market. And the rest is a tail. Maybe you feel it similar in F1, no? Who takes the most points. But in our case, that we are an independent company who's bringing products from the West to the East, to emerging economies, we are only one. We're racing this race ourselves. And when we saw competition on the racetrack, we acquire. So we ended up basically today Aleph been acquiring in Asia, in Africa, in the Middle East, in Central Europe. So now we are the only company in the world. The recent deal that we just did in Saudi Arabia, where we partner with a local organization. We are the only company in the world doing this and kind of running by ourselves. I'm sure there are going to be born new competition in the future. And that's what it put us on our toes, constantly.
Well, I like your strategy. Just buy everyone out so there's no competition.
Exactly. I think Mark Zuckerberg did something similar.
I mean, I can give you a couple. There are luxury brands out there that you don't even realize, that, or shampoo companies that you don't realize that you're on the shelf, different position on the shelf, different packaging, but you're buying from the same umbrella. And customers don't realize, and there are different budgets, shampoo for $5, for $10 or $40. And I think in our case, a strategy is we want to do 2 or 3 things very well done, and we want to be the best on it. And then I want to switch gears to taking risk. We take risk, like he does sometimes.
Well, you have to take a bet, otherwise you're not going to win, don't you, sometimes?
But I have more time to see the result. He doesn't, no?
What do you make of that? What's your risk versus reward threshold, Nico?
It's, there's no rule of thumb for it. It's different every weekend, different every race and situation. But yeah, obviously in our business or industry, there's often no second chances. You have to deliver the lap now and not in 5 minutes or in 1 hour. It's got to be now. And so with the race start, it happens one time, all very fast in split seconds. Obviously, other cars around you, you're often reacting obviously to the circumstances around you. So it's beautiful when it works out, but it's also really tough sometimes when it doesn't work out and it goes against you, and the whole work of the team, of weeks of preparation is kind of in the bin, maybe in turn one, like it was in Austin in the sprint race, when you have something good going, and then in a split second it vanishes and goes down into the bin. So that's the laws and the physics of F1. But
do you see a correlation in between Austin and Britain, and that you see a correlation of taking some risk?
I think quite different circumstances. I think the race in Britain it's a very unique race. A race like this comes around maybe once or twice a season. At best.
Microclimate, yeah.
Exactly, the climate there and the changeable conditions, and that it moves around so much. It's rare, and what we did there on that day was magic. Still to today, it was, it's really hard to make the right calls in these kind of conditions, and we nailed it every single one, which is super difficult and super rare. So I don't know, the stars aligned on that day, and.
I have something from my heart I want to ask Nico. Can I?
Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah.
In Britain, the last 3-4 laps, you were number 3rd, right? What was in your heart in that moment?
My heart was pounding. I can tell you that. It was very intense. Obviously, it was a bit of a distant battle with Lewis. I had 5-6 seconds. I was ahead of him. But I knew obviously for him it would mean the world to get that podium on home soil with Ferrari. But it was also meant everything to me. I was racing for my first podium, and in these conditions, when you're on slicks, but the track is still a bit damp here and there, if you turn in a little bit wrong one corner, you hit the damp patch, your history finished. So it's so intense. You're just so focused. Not to make a mistake, to hit every braking point, every turning point perfectly and precise. I didn't think much. I was just functioning, doing my job, doing what I'm trained to do. But when I came through the start and finish line, and when the race was finished, I felt, the relief and the pressure, and my mouth was dry like the Sahara desert, and I felt my heartbeat was really high.
And you know what is funny? Everyone else was asking about, did Nico come third?
Yeah, they were so happy for you.
I mean, I found it like a wow, because it's so competitive, right?
Yeah.
Out there. And I see in Britain, who was number 1 and 2, who was first and second in Britain? I don't remember, I think Piastri or...
Piastri, yeah.
I'm going to say it, this is my own person. Nobody cared about these two. You guys
maybe some of the damn
exactly,
people in the
but
grandstand
there were
did.
10 minutes that was only for this guy. I really mean it. The entire crowd was happy for you. I don't know if you can use the word underdog. I feel myself, I was as well underdog.
Oh, we were for 100% an underdog in that race, starting from last. I think everyone had, sympathy for my story and Sauber's difficult recent years, and everyone loves an underdog story.
That's the point, because people connect, and I felt that everybody there was, and the guys on the radio, these other, super pro guys as well as you, asking, did Nico come today? Oh, good for him. I think it was, I don't know, Piastri or asking about you. So congratulations, because that means also not winning, but creating an ecosystem where you're building relationships through time with your competitors, no, with your other.
Yeah, it shows they have respect, and they like us.
Well, you've never done the dirty on anyone, have you? On track, have you?
What do you mean by the dirty?
Taken anyone out?
Oh, I'm sure I have, but not in a nasty or intentional way. But in racing, things happen sometimes. You touch, you rub. How would you call it? Rubbing.
Rubbing is racing, they say in America. Yeah.
Exactly, but that's part of it.
And it's not like when you're playing on the Xbox and you can press a button and rewind 5 seconds and try and do it again.
Reset. No reset.
Speaking of resetting, obviously we all have setbacks, and it can be setbacks in the moment or sort of long-term setbacks. You've had deals that don't come about. You've had someone getting in your way in a qualifying lap, or engine's blown up. How do you reset after that and just sort of deal with it and move on?
Yeah, setbacks, can be can be very different kinds. Can be your own mistake also, which are usually, the most frustrating and takes you the most time to get over it, to digest it. But, I think they're part of life, part of business, and certainly part of, professional sports. It's always important, I think, to hit pause, to look at the situation, analyze it, understand, what and why and how it happened. But then eventually, obviously, you need to process it, to digest it and move on, and try, obviously, to not make that same mistake again if it was yours. And it's always important that you bounce back. If you don't bounce back, then there's no career, there's no life.
What does bouncing back look like in the digital advertising business? Because with a technology firm, things move so fast that it's kind of must be difficult to take stock at times.
Look, I made a decision in our career not to be a tech developer, because I know my weaknesses, and I know there's people with deeper pockets. So I'd rather become an organization who enable technology development in emerging economies, 100+ countries. We talked yesterday about setback. I think if I look at the statistically in my career, personal things, professional, everything that you see at the moment as a failure, I ended up landing in a better place. Oh, this deal didn't go through, and then you see better that didn't go through. And then when you make a mistake on, say, in a contract, I didn't realize this. It's a learning. You talked yesterday about failure. It's not failure, it's learning. Think about, we came to this world with nothing. We're going to leave this world with nothing. Everything in the middle is winning. Look, you're going to laugh about this. I said this in a Citibank conference, they never invite me again. The minute that your parents decide to bring you to this world, you are 1 out of 400 million. You're a racer winner. You're here in this world, you're winning. So yesterday talk about failure. What is success? I tell you what is success. Success is satisfaction. When you feel satisfaction all the time. So for me, I don't fail because I feel satisfied with what I do. I really mean it.
Because it's also a learning experience when things don't go right. Because sometimes, you don't get a trophy for things that go wrong, but you can actually learn from it, can't you?
He has in his profession has a more difficult thing because there's only one number one. In our industry, you don't need to be number one. I don't race to be number one. And myself, I think that's a difference. Maybe you race all your life to be number one and to win a championship. I removed that backpack since the beginning.
Yeah. Well, for us, obviously, in a race, you always get measured. There is the classification, and there's only one winner. So, but that's a label. I think it's a lot of truth what you say. What is success? If you feel satisfaction, if you feel happy with where you are, what you do, that's the most powerful, I think, feeling and thing. Yeah.
There's a certain level of performance in each car, isn't there? So you presumably set out knowing what's the theoretical maximum you can achieve. So that's your target, isn't it?
Yeah, that target is also then, somewhat liquid and dynamic as the season goes on because, all the teams work and develop, and sometimes you make, an improvement and you're a bit ahead of the others, then the others maybe make an improvement. So it's dynamic, but yeah, like you say, there is a certain performance in your car, and if you don't have enough, you're never gonna get that first place, or you need very special circumstances, a bit like in Silverstone, to achieve special things. But you know, the aim is always to obviously improve what you have and to maximize your opportunities and maximize them.